Dennis Fisher giant robot from the late 1970s. This robot first featured in the opening story of Tom Baker's tenure as Doctor Who, in a story simply called Robot, where this little fella, which is Kettlewell's K9 robot, invented by Professor Kettlewell, is used by some unscrupulous people to steal things, disintegrate a gun pieces, and so on and so forth. At the end of the story, it turns giant. So this one isn't giant, thankfully, and it's also missing a number of pieces. These things are reasonably rare, quite expensive if you want to buy a boxed version. This version came off eBay, and as usual with these things, it's missing its shoulder pads that sit over there, which is quite frustrating. So that's missing both of these. This model is also missing its claw-like hands. So otherwise, it's in reasonable condition, maybe a little bit dirty, but he's got his feet, his body's quite tight, his head's there, tiny little crack in the neck that I'm not that bothered about, but these things look far better with those shoulder pads on. In this video, I'm basically going to recast using plastic resin some replacement shoulder pads, spray them up and click them back on. I'm also going to try and recreate those hands and see if we can make this thing look scary and sinister. You can see here this strange contraption is a mould I made off a spare giant robot shoulder pad using pink silicone rubber. This stuff costs a small fortune in Hobbycraft, but you can get it online for a reasonable cost. You basically create the mould using Lego, some clay, and then you allow it to set. What I've done with this one is I've left an exhaust hole in here to let some air escape, and I've put a larger hole in here so I can use a syringe to inject in some liquid resin, which should then set. I'm going to put this in a pressure chamber once it's got resin in it, which eradicates or shrinks down air bubbles so it won't spoil the overall effect. Due to the amount of silicone rubber here and the fact I'm a little bit of a cheapskate, I've only got one of these, so I'll be doing it one at a time. So and only have one shoulder pad. So I'm going to mix my resin, put it in using the syringe, do it under pressure, and when that's done, I shall come back and we'll open it and see how it all looks. Okay, I've put all my casting resin in this mould. I've supported each side, one with like a credit card piece of material and one with a solid piece of Lego. That's basically to stop the contents of the mould becoming unstable and causing me a few problems, which I don't want, obviously. So let's try and lift that off, get rid of all this junk over here, like so. Take that off there. So basically now we've got our mould complete with dried resin. To take it off, just got to be careful. You can see there, take that lid off, and you can see inside, hopefully, that we've got quite a nice representation of the shoulder pad. Depending upon how cured this is, you might either want to leave this in for a little while to stabilise or not, as the case may be. Yeah, so I'm going to turn this camera off and I'm trying to get this completed shoulder pad out, and then we can see what it looks like a bit clearer. Okay, what you can see now is basically the moulded shoulder pad. It's got the little hook on there, which I'm pleased with. Generally pleased with the shape. There is some slight bubbling and imperfections in this, as you can see. I'm not overly concerned about that because structurally there is enough of the shoulder pad here to be able to fill and sand any of those small holes with milli put or any other form of modelling putty. So that's solid, it's done. Yes, it needs a little bit of tidying up, but otherwise we're in quite a good place with that, and hopefully I'll be able to go away now and cast another. Okay, here's the next stage of these shoulder pads. I've cleaned all the bits of flashing that comes off these, which is basically overspill from the mould. Tidied it up, made sure those holes that basically clip him onto the giant robot aren't blocked with bits of plastic. That one's come out really well. I'll probably sand that edge down, it looks a little bit rough. And there's a few very fine, you might be able to see there's a few fine bubble blemishes on that surface. There was also some fine bubble blemishes on the surface of this one, albeit maybe not so fine. So what I've done is mixed up some milli put, and basically along here where there was holes, I've basically popped some milli put into those rather than having to, you can see it there, 1, 2, 3, and there was some down on these corners. So again, rather than recast it again, I thought it would be best just to fill it in once it's painted, or once they're painted rather. You won't really see that issue. So what I'm going to do now is get some milli put as well, and finally pop it in there. If anyone watching this video wants to complain about this yellow behind my nails, that is actually milli put, before anyone gets anxious about that. So I'm going to fill that now. Okay, here you'll see the shoulder pads that I've been working on for the Dennis Fisher giant robot, all nicely filled now and primed with plastic primer. So there we go. Now I don't know whether you can see this, but on both of these there's like a tiny little scar there and a tiny little scar there, both identical, and both is a flaw on the original shoulder pad that I took the mould off. But to look closely at them, you can see, if it goes into focus, all of the nice fill in there. So I've primed it on that side as well. Could probably squirt a bit more on there. So again, I'm quite pleased with that filling. I don't want these to look perfect like the originals, because you wouldn't want anyone to be tricked or whatnot into thinking that they were, when quite clearly they're a reproduction. But okay, here the shoulder pads are. These have now been painted, spray painted, using this Halford's Quartz Grey spray paint. It's a little bit dark compared to the original figures, but I'm not really that concerned about that. It's got a really nice shine and sheen on it, and it looks metallic. It doesn't look too original, but there we go. I'm now going to apply a coat of lacquer to this, and then they'll be finished and ready to put up back on the Dennis Fisher giant robot from the late 1970s. Keep watching. Okay, there we go. I've just applied some of this Halford's clear lacquer to the top of that spray paint, which I've already applied to those shoulder pads. I've then clicked the shoulder pads onto the robot. They kind of like click on with a lug there, and of course we've got that section there. There's also one on the back. Issue with this robot, another one, is that that little peg is missing from in there. So it's not the end of the world as it is. There's probably something I could do to fix it by putting some kind of very thin nail through there, I suppose, to hold it on. You can see why these shoulder pads got lost back in the day. So if we turn him round, you can see there's the completed shoulder pad, and you can see that on the back of it there's lugs as well that the that those things clip into, and there's the other one. Are they perfect? No, far from it. Are they acceptable? To me, yes, absolutely. From a display perspective, they're awesome. And let's tilt that camera like that so you can get a clearer view of it with his shoulder pads on. Far more impressive than we are comparing a giant robot without the shoulder pads versus one with my recreations. I think the recreated one looks far more bulky in the chest and looks a lot more menacing as a figure. So yeah, happy with that. So now it's time to recreate those hands. That's going to be for another video, so I'll do that then. Bye.